Welcome to the Communication 24/7 podcast, where we communicate about how we communicate. I'm your host, Jennifer Furlong. Hello, welcome to the Communication 24/7 podcast, where we communicate about how we communicate. I'm your host, Jen Furlong. I have a really special guest today. Thomas Cox and I started communicating some time ago, and due to my own fault, I had to postpone this conversation, and I'm so excited to be able to have him on the show today. We're going to talk about leadership development, focus on what are those communication skills that we really need to concentrate on developing in order to be successful and to move up into those leadership ranks, specifically executive leadership. I haven't had an opportunity really to have someone on the show who can talk to us about this part of our communication skills. So, Thomas, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm super excited about this conversation with you.
Thank you, Jen. We could cover many hours on this, but I'll do
yeah, absolutely.
We'll try to be brisk and brief.
So just to get the audience caught up with you, how did you get into this space of leadership development? Because, reading your bio, you have a lot of fantastic experience. So what
was a terrible experience.
Move here? Mm-hmm.
I was originally a technologist. I was one of those people who's technically brilliant and a total jerk. And my thinking was, if I was technically brilliant enough, you would all have to put up with me. Mm-hmm. And that worked okay, not great. It didn't work as well as I was imagining it was working, I suspect. But what happened is I plateaued technically. I was doing database architecture, working for Oracle and IBM and PricewaterhouseCoopers, and having worked on a bunch of big projects, big clients, interesting work. And after about 15 years, I'd gone so deep into it that I designed kind of every database structure there was, and none of it was challenging anymore. I'm like, do I want to coast for the next 20, 30 years? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, nah, I want to challenge. What am I not good at, but I really want to be good at? And for me, that was people. It was leadership. I realized I've got what's commonly referred to as Asperger's syndrome. I don't think they've let go of that as a formal diagnosis anymore, but it's a cluster of attributes of being not very good at people skills or picking up on context and subtext, and everyone's looking at me funny. It's like, it's because you're being a jerk, Thomas. It's like, no, it can't be that. Yeah, it's exactly that, dude. And I went through high school and college, not making very many friends and not being very empathic, but just loving my technology and loving my facts, and that will never get you into leadership, or if it does, you will not be a good leader. And I found that out in 2005 when I was forced to confront the fact that I was a borderline toxic leader. Mm-hmm. And here, but I've been reading Harvard Business Review, and I've been studying all these books, and I want to be good. Like, how can I be this bad when I want to be this good? And I've been reading all the stuff. Like, what's going on here? And that's when I had to face that a vast amount of what passes for leadership literature is garbage. Mm. It's either completely wrong or it's too narrow. There's a whole class that I call TBU, true but useless, where you read the words and you're like, yeah, okay, I can get that. And then you're done reading and you're like, so what do I do? And the answer is, well, there's nothing in there to tell you that. Some of it's even from top names. They'll have, I'm reading passages like, leaders drive results. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, leaders drive results. Got it. So how do I do that? And what I had to do was, and this again, my obsessive fact-oriented brain really served me well once I set my mind to this. Starting in 2005, I had to figure this out. And I ran across a very few sources that were truly excellent. I'll give one credit in particular, managertools.com, manager-tools.com. If you take nothing else from me today, but you go to that website and start to listen to the free podcasts or subscribe or buy the book by Mark Horstman on the effective manager, it took me from helpless, hopeless, useless to a pretty decent manager very, very quickly. And that's been kind of the backbone of everything I've learned. Now, I've since added a lot to that. And what I want to talk to you today has to do with accountability. Because everyone will tell you that accountability is great and everyone wants other people to have more accountability. But they strangely don't seem to think that they themselves need that much more, or they kind of sort of know that they could be better, but they don't know where to really start.
Yeah.
That was a deep dive for me. And it turns out that a guy named Fernando Flores figured this out. 1985. He published something with his collaborator from Stanford, Terry Winograd, and it is something called the basic workflow. And it turns out that every accountable agreement, and accountability comes from making accountable agreements and then fulfilling them, is that dialogue has a 4-part structure and is the same structure for everybody, for every accountable conversation, every accountable agreement you'll ever make in your life, whether it's please pass the salt or open us a new division in Salt Lake City. It doesn't matter how big or small. The structure is identical. And as I describe it, you'll think to yourself, yeah, okay, I get that. But there's some subtleties that I will elaborate for you that will differentiate you from your coworkers. You'll stand out in the eyes of your customers and your boss, and it'll attract to you much more responsibility when you master this. So,
I want to jump in real quick because I really appreciate your focus on the how-to aspect of it. I think a lot of listeners that will resonate with them, and that's one of the
without
reasons.
That, we're just saying
all theory,
plausible things. Oh yeah, we love a great leader. Oh yeah, you should be authentic. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we spend a half an hour talking about how great authenticity is, but at the end of the day, if you don't know what to do differently, I have not helped you.
Yes.
And I'm committed to helping people.
It's so critical.
That's my mission. That's my passion.
Yeah. So I have a great appreciation for that. And I know the listeners will have an appreciation for that as well. I do want to ask one question that with something that you had just mentioned, you had realized that you were kind of sort of a toxic boss. And what exactly was it that pinpointed to you, this is holding me back? Because there's so many people out there, and you can give them the feedback, but they ain't hearing it, right? And you can do all the 360s in the world, and everybody's giving you similar feedback, but they're not able to take it in. So what was it about
they don't know what taking it means because they don't know what the new behaviors have to be. So it turns out every follower wants the exact same fundamental experience. And that fundamental experience is they want a boss who has a strong enough relationship with them that they can tell that boss knows them as a unique human being, really listens to them, pays attention to them, doesn't confuse them with other people on the team, knows what they're good at, and cares about them. Not too much, but more than nothing. Like they're not going to mistake you for a family member, but you matter to them. And at the same time, they want a boss who champions excellence and won't let them skate, won't let them phone it in. They really was going to pull out of them their best work. And so, Jen, if you and I didn't know each other very well, and I said to you, Jen, this is not your best work. I need you to do this again. You'd think, wow, what a manipulative line. Yeah, right. You don't know what my best work is, you chump. But if you and I had spent many weeks where every week I have a half-hour meeting with you that's scheduled in advance where you talk first and I listen and I'm taking notes, and that's the one-on-one managertools.com recommends. It's research has shown that is the best way to do it every week, 30 minutes. And in that time, 8-12 weeks go by and you know that I know you well. I listen to you. I pay attention to you. I give you feedback on your performance is spot on. And then I come to you one day and say, Jen, this report, not your best work. I need your best work on this one. I need you to do it again. And you're going to go like, yeah, Tom really knows me.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of know you kind of did phone it in. And rather than get into denial or name calling or whatever, you're going to go, yeah, he's right. And you're going to do it again because I care enough about you and you care enough about me that you want to maintain the relationship. You'll go the extra mile for me. And you know that I'm not going to say something in a manipulative way. If I say it's not your best work, I'm probably seeing something real. And I've demonstrated to you that I can really spot good work from not good work.
Build that trust.
Yeah. And so strong relationship and strong requiring, those are the two pieces that have to come together simultaneously to create an excellent boss experience. And I was mediocre at requiring and I was a 0 at relating in 2005.
Yeah.
And I just had to start over and learn those skills.
Yeah. Do you think you had mentioned empathy earlier and how that was something that had not developed in you. And that resonates with me. Empathy is really hard to get at, how did you build the empathy part? Because for a lot of people that it does come natural for a lot of people, but for many of us who are more like action oriented, it's a skill that you really do have to try to develop. So what did you do to develop that?
Well, the first thing to remember is the more action-oriented you are, the more you want empathy because it just speeds things up. And if you're already an empathic person, great. But if you're too empathic, you'll hesitate to require appropriately, thinking that it might harm the relationship. And you'll lose sight of the fact that the best boss you've ever had is someone who did demand your top work from you. Mm-hmm. So if you let your empathy get in the way of demanding excellence, you're actually harming the relationship, believe it or not. And if you're a task-oriented person, you're I'm about results. I'm a hard-nosed results person. It's like, great. And empathy will get you there faster, better. That's the reason why you should take the time to understand how. If you don't know how humans work, you can't work with humans. Like if you can't figure out how to drive the car, you can't get anywhere with the car. Humans run on empathy, among other things. It gives you the relationship and the traction to ask for what you want, and you're likely to get a yes from people.
Yeah. Did you find that your empathy grew over time as you continued to practice the one-on-ones and having those conversations?
Yeah. I had to read about empathy development and where it fits in the brain. And there's some specific practices you can do to accelerate this quite dramatically. One is get into Toastmasters and become an officer in a Toastmasters club. That is the fast track to leadership skill development because it's all volunteers. No one's doing it for money. You can't force people to do anything. You got to persuade them. And there's a lot of public speaking and leading. And so Toastmasters gives you a little bit of speaking every single week, and it's only through repetition that we get better and positive feedback.
Yeah.
The other thing that helps a ton is if you can find it, or there's various sources for this, improvisational theater, not comedy. Comedy is about humor. Humor is distancing. Improvisational theater is about getting onto a stage with one or more other people, listening deeply to them in the moment. You can't have anything preconceived. You're fully present. And then you respond with something that is emotionally appropriate to the emotional reality they've given you in their comments. You don't respond to the words nearly as much as you respond to the totality of what they've said and the way they've said it. And because it's just fun. It's just practice. It's not like the stakes are low. And therefore, you get a lot of reps, a lot of repetitions in a low stress, a low risk environment with lots of very fast feedback. And that's the way to learn something well. And improv theater did tons for my empathy development, my ability to listen for the emotional truth in other people's words and their tone of voice. So that would be listening. An approach.
That's key right there. You're making me think back to when I was teaching at the college level. I taught for 18 years at the college level, and I taught public speaking and human communication skills. And at the time, the university I taught for, they made it a requirement for all computer sciences and IT majors. They had to take public speaking in order to graduate.
Good.
And I agree. I was like, yes, good. We know that there's value in this. And those kids would come in, of course, they would come into the classroom, half of them seniors, because they would wait till the last minute to take this class because they had to have it to graduate.
Hoping that the requirement would be dropped over the course of the 4 years.
But by the end of the semester, every single time, without fail, they would say, I should have taken this class so long ago. I don't know. Why did I wait to take this class? What was I scared for? What was I scared of? Because they ended up, they saw how these skills were really impacting them in other areas. Yeah. And, they ended up having fun with it, doing the impromptu stuff, things like what you were just talking about. It truly is a valuable skill to be able to develop.
Incredibly so. And you can't name me a leadership role that doesn't involve speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? To a team, to the group, to your boss, to a senior committee, to something other than yourself or you, like one other person. If you can't get up and speak and be on stage. Oh yeah, by the way, when you're a leader, everyone's looking at you.
Yeah.
Your whole team's watching you very carefully because you're kind of the alpha dog. You're setting the emotional tone for the team. Right. If you come in with a frown on your face, everyone starts to get worried.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you just got a flat tire that morning, but the next thing you know, there's rumors of layoffs or something. It's like, no, I'm just down, dudes. And so you got to be able to self-regulate.
Yeah.
Not just read others, but also read yourself and have a good self-control.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the most useful tool for that is, and this is something that I provide to my clients, called positive intelligence. There's a book by that name, Positive Intelligence. There's a website, positiveintelligence.com. And that is really a foundational set of skills for getting out of fight or flight, getting out of blame, and being constructive and being fully present with others.
Mm-hmm.
It's incomparable. It's revolutionized my practice.
Show your support by becoming a Calm 24/7 Insider. Monthly subscriptions begin for as little as $3 a month. Join today and get a shout out on an upcoming episode and receive a special gift from me. To join my Insider Club, click on the link in the show notes. Yeah. And I think that goes back to the accountability aspect that you had mentioned earlier, just being willing to look at what it is that you're responsible for and making sure that you're holding yourself up to those standards and no excuses about it. And if you screw up, right? Make sure it's a learning experience.
And have the courage to admit it and make a point to learn. Do you still want me to talk about the 4-step process of creating an accountable agreement and fulfilling it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to share that. That to me is. So imagine covering a circle in 4 segments. You start at, say, 12 o'clock. We're going to start at a spot on a circle. You're going to go a quarter way around the circle, and we're going to label that initiation. That is, you are about to ask somebody for, hey, please do this thing for me. You want them to enter into agreement with you. And you need to spend a little time getting clear on, what exactly do I want? How do I want it? By when do I want it? Have I gathered all the data I need to give them for this? Very first time I taught this was to a guy named Eric Albertson. And he discovered that he was routinely asking his assistant for things, doing the initiation, and giving him 1/4 of the information needed to actually do it. Guaranteeing back and forth messages. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And when I gave him the training, he's like, oh, I'm wasting a lot of our time by prematurely initiating without actually having all the stuff lined up. So you've heard the phrase, well begun is half done. That's what a good initiation is getting your head on straight. If you've ever asked for this before, if this is a routine ask, there's no excuse for you not to have your ducks in a line. And have your facts laid out. I mean, make a template, do a Google form. I mean, just take the time to respect the person you're going to ask by getting yourself straight first. So you initiate carefully and clearly. And if there was a hiccup last time, think about that hiccup and how do I front load a request that we not do that again? Like, oh, you gave me a PDF and I wanted a Word document.
Mm-hmm.
What if my initiation, I say the words, I want this as a Word document, please. So you don't have to guess or remember.
It's good info.
Good, clear initiation. So then, okay, initiation ends when I open my mouth or send the email to actually ask. Now we get into negotiation. Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, is a great book for the negotiation phase because he's all about win-win negotiation, where you try to say, okay, and what else do I need to know? How do we make this an even better agreement together? And you never, ever, ever want to say yes prematurely. That is the death of good accountability. If someone's asking you, hey, Thomas, will you? Hey, Jen, will you do this thing for me? Do not say the word yes until you have gathered the information you need to actually commit to that yes. If I said, yes, I'll do this podcast to you, and I hadn't checked my calendar and I was out of town that day or otherwise unavailable, I'd have to go back with my tail between my legs and, oh, Jen, I'm sorry. I said yes, but okay, now I look like a chump. Mm-hmm. Right? You started to build on my yes. You started to schedule things. You're like starting to depend on me. And here I am changing stuff. Mm-hmm. I could have checked my calendar up front, couldn't I? Shouldn't I? Wouldn't you be happier if I had? Of course you would. So my best advice to the people being asked, if you think you need to say yes to placate somebody because it's your boss and you have to say yes to your boss, or you're a pleaser and you just want to make everybody happy by saying yes to everything, do not do that. Mm-hmm. Hold yourself back. And if you need to express your enthusiasm or your willingness, say, hey, I'm so looking forward to getting all the information from you so that I can give you a committed yes. Here's my questions. Mm. And you hold back on the commitment yes. There's three kinds of yes, as Chris Voss says in his book, Never Split the Difference. There's the confirmation yes, like, is it half past the hour already? Yes, it is. Are we going to meet at 7:00 for dinner? Yeah, 7:00. That's like you're confirming facts. That's all that yes is. It doesn't actually create any kind of accountability commitment. The second kind is the counterfeit yes. That's where you say yes, but don't really mean it. Mm. Or you say it, but you haven't really checked. And so you can't really mean it. And you're doing it because you want to protect yourself emotionally. You do it to manipulate the other person. You're trying to create an expectation or belief, either prematurely or contrary to the facts. And you should never accept a counterfeit yes. You should never give a counterfeit yes. And if you suspect a counterfeit yes, challenge it, including one from yourself. Mm-hmm. So then the third kind of yes is commitment, where I tell you, when I say yes to you, Jen, I am taking on the burden of you expecting me to do this the way we've now agreed, and my reputation is on the line. And if you want to advance in an organization, you make sure that you give commitment yeses and follow through. And that means you take the time to gather the information first. As soon as you discover there's a problem, like, hey, I gave you a commitment yesterday, and then something happened. Mm-hmm. I discovered my wife has us booked to be out of town that day, and I can't reschedule it. Or my dishwasher blew up, and I have to spend the day fixing it. Or, I got sick, and I can't do the thing. Right. But as soon as I know, I'm telling you. Why? Because I want you to have lead time, because I care about you, because I have integrity, and I want you to know that the expectation may shift. Mm-hmm. Accountability is really about managing expectations at least as much as managing the work. There's two halves to accountability. There's the promise made, and then there's the work done. Mm-hmm. And they must match. And every time they start to drift apart, you do the work to reconnect them.
Right.
And there's I have a 4-hour class I teach on this, on how exactly to manage all these pieces. Okay, so finally you get through negotiation, you give your committed yes, you pulled out of the other person all the facts, the context. So you want a report. How are you going to use this report? Who's going to read the report? What format do you want the report in? What kind of detail do you need? How quickly? Are you going to want to reuse this? Would you be happier with a spreadsheet? Should I also include a graph? Should the graph be colorblind accessible? You might ask. Okay, that's a little deep, but you get the idea. And the more intelligent questions you ask before that final yes, the more your value rises in the other person's eyes, because you've got your ducks in a row as the work provider. You're asking tough questions. What difference does this really make? How good is good enough? How much detail do you need? I don't want to overwork this and charge you extra for something you don't need. I don't want to underdeliver. Are other people contributing information that I should be coordinating with so that all of our work can fold together? It's like, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, I am. Okay, great. Give me their names and I'll coordinate with them. Wouldn't that be nice? All right. Part 1 was initiate. Part 2 was negotiate. Now it's time to perform. Everyone assumes accountability is all about performance. It's only a quarter about good performance, but it's a big quarter. When you're performing, you have already made the agreement. If you have to tweak the agreement, you do it proactively and very, very explicitly. And you may turn around and become an asker yourself and ask subcontractors to help you out. Hey, I promised Jen this thing. I need to get some stuff done. Hey, Fred. Hey, Barney, come help me. What happens if Fred or Barney let me down? Do I go to Jen and say, Jen, it's not my fault. Fred let me down. No. Top performers never blame anyone. They own their inputs. That's the phrase you want to use. Look this up. Owning the inputs means if I turn around to help Jen and I ask Fred or Barney for help, I ask them with enough lead time that if they don't perform, I can replace their work with someone else's, or I can recover. And if I can't recover, I say to Jen, I'm sorry, I failed to properly manage my subcontractors. I've let you down. Here's my repromise. It'll be late, and I'm very sorry. How can I help reduce the impact on you? That's me owning it. Now, how do you feel when I talk like that?
Life sometimes appears to be random and cruel, and in our lowest moments we feel lonely and insignificant. But what if we had access to the best advice from history's greatest books and sages condensed into 5-minute lessons that taught us how to rise above anxiety, depression, and fear? Life's 3 Things podcast is designed to do just that. If you feel you need a quick boost of strength, wisdom, or inspiration, subscribe to Life's 3 Things from author Manny Garcia, wherever you listen to podcasts.
I was going to say, if you could just for 1 second really think about and hear what Tom just said right there. I failed in having my subcontractors, or I failed to communicate effectively, or being able to take ownership. That makes me feel okay. I can still have trust in that.
Yeah, I'm still driving this ship.
Yeah, you're still driving it. You're taking responsibility for it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Whereas if I try to shed responsibility, say, Jen, it's not my fault. These other things happen beyond my control. Now you're thinking, well, clearly Thomas isn't running the show. Can I talk to whoever is in charge, please?
Right.
Because it clearly isn't Tom. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be the one not in charge. Okay.
Yeah. That's not a good leadership trait.
Not a good look. Not a good look. And since you don't want to have to say, hey, I screwed up, there's your incentive to plan it well, be proactive, create really early deadlines for your subloops and your subcontractors so that you have time to integrate, you have time to recover from service failures and so on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've done your performance. If you have to go back and say, hey, I promised you oak, we're out of oak. I just found out oak is going to be another 6 weeks. Do you want to wait the 6 weeks, or should I use alder or ash? I've got those in stock. I've double checked. I've actually reserved some just in case you say yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we might talk about the pros and cons of waiting versus going with a different wood, but at least you've got a choice, and at least I've told you as early as I possibly could.
That's right.
It's a trust builder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yay. Performance is done. Are we done yet? No. We're 3/4 of the way. Now we have to have the final phase called acceptance, where performance isn't done until I both do the work and, number 2, tell you I have done the work. Okay, how do I tell you I've done the work? Well, we should have negotiated that. We should have agreed during negotiation. So, Jen, when I'm done with this, how do you want me to inform you that I'm done? And how would you like this delivered? Should I drop it on your front porch? Should I leave it at the on-call window? Do you want me to forward it on to Betty? We should know in advance. Good negotiation, good initiation. We'll have that all straightened out, and you'll know that I know what to do at the end of performance. I'll say, Jen, performance is done. Here's my report. The performance is done. I'm notifying you in the way you asked, which is a text message, an email, a couriered letter, whatever. Okay, but we're still not done because during initiation negotiation, we agreed that once I deliver, you will look at it and you'll tell me if it's okay or not. It's the acceptance period. You say, yep, this looks fine as is. Thanks so much. Or, no, actually, my needs have changed. Or, it's not what's the old saying in IT? It's exactly what I asked for, but it's not what I want.
Yeah.
Who knows what the answer is going to be? But part of us building a stronger and stronger and stronger relationship isn't just me delivering. It's us having a high bandwidth, high trusting conversation after delivery about, okay, did this work for you? How could I have done even better? What would you like me to do even better next time? How do you initiate better? How do I perform better next time we do this particular dance? Mm-hmm. And if you're disappointed during acceptance, I did my best and you're not happy, I'm going to learn lessons from that. I'm going to take ownership for my role in it. And I'm going to give you, hopefully I'll tell you literally exactly what I'm going to do differently next time if you give me another chance.
Yeah.
And repeated improvements is an upward spiral of quality.
Right.
And an upward spiral of mutual trust.
Yeah.
I tell you, there's people I would hire again who completely screwed the pooch, but they handled the failure so gracefully and so well. This literally happened. We had a mold treatment in the house we were selling. We were 3 days from close. They go in, put a little bleach solution on, then they're going to air out the crawl space, the attic space. We come in the next day. The entire house reeks of bleach. It's uninhabitable. And now we're not going to close on the sale, but we already bought the new place. Everything's in disarray. And it's like Saturday.
Of course.
Right. Okay. And there's no hotline number to call. There's no emergency red phone, nothing. And we're furious and livid. And I'm like calling, Paul Davis disaster recovery specialist to come in and remediate this mess. And that's going to be, probably $6,000. The owners get back in touch and say, shows up physically, meets us on site with every blower and fan I've ever seen in my life. And the entire staff and his wife are there. And they're like, we're going to make this right. And within a day, you couldn't smell a thing. It was all better. And they apologized and they explained that they were going to change their weekend protocol so that no one would ever have not have a phone number to call if there was a problem. They handled it so well, so beautifully. I gave them a 5-star Google review, and I would use them again in a heartbeat.
StreamYard provides easy live streaming and recording, allowing you to stream to multiple online platforms all at one time. Whether you're a creator, a content marketer, business, or just someone with something to say, StreamYard is the way to spread your message and engage with your audience. You can host virtual events, grow your business, inspire your followers, and create a movement. Try StreamYard today for free by clicking on the link in the show notes. That's amazing, and one theme that I'm seeing as you're describing these 4 parts of this circle, clarity in communication is so important during every single step that you were taking us through. from the clarity in communicating what your vision is, what it is you're exactly asking for, to clarifying with questions to make sure that you understand it. And I think something that a lot of people need to hear at this point, when you're asking those questions to clarify, it's giving you an opportunity to really think about, can I realistically deliver this? And it is okay to say, I cannot realistically deliver this at this time.
You are
Or I
better
can't.
off saying, no, I can't do it,
Exactly. Yeah.
than
Yeah.
saying yes, and it turns out not to be the case.
Yeah. And it's so hard. So many people have a hard time saying no. They're afraid to say no.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It
But I think that's a
feels
really good approach.
dreadful.
Yeah, it kind of gives them permission, in this way to really think things through realistically. I mean, at this moment in time, I'm not going to be able to pull this off. Or I would be able to pull this off if I had 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. And that would go into that negotiation part that you were discussing just a moment ago.
So I'm attempting to do a share here. I'm hoping it's visible. This is our friend, the accountability loop. You'll see the asker on the left starts with an initiate as you go up out of the asker on the left side. Initiation ends with that request for performance. That's the object, the artifact, the email, what have you. And then the negotiate phase occurs from the top down towards the right, ending with a mutual agreement of performance. What are we each going to do? I will do the work. Jen, you will promise to respond to my emails promptly when I ask for questions or have problems or need a decision. And we agree on how I will deliver. Then there's the perform phase, which only ends when I report that I'm done. I can't do the work and go home for the day. I have to do the work and tell you it's done. Otherwise, you don't know it's done. You can't do your next piece. And then we've also agreed that you're going to go through an acceptance period and let me know, hey, was this any good? Did it meet your needs? How can I do even better next time?
Yeah. And I like this because it regardless of what side you're on, whether you're the asker or you're the doer, you really are taking responsibility. You're taking ownership for your part in
Bingo.
this. So if it breaks down at some point, you really do need to pay attention to that and ask yourself, did I ask the right questions, or did I make myself clear? And really focus on what I could have done better in order to make that correction for the next time. I love that. That's one thing that I'm, as a communicator, I'm all about. Take responsibility for how you are expressing yourself, whatever it is.
Yes. So let me show you one last thing. So during perform, it's very common to run into hiccups, roadblocks, issues of various kinds. Yeah. And I actually formulated the accountability loop and found Fernando Flores' original research while I was trying to help a client. Helped him actually quite dramatically. They were a digital agency, and they had a problem that they would start working on something and their clients would just go dark on them, wouldn't reply to emails, wouldn't make decisions on logos, and it would drag the project out. It would add all kinds of additional costs to things. And they hadn't actually talked about cost overruns in advance, so they didn't feel they could charge for it. And so they ended up eating a lot of overages, and they weren't making money. Plus, they were frustrated. Yeah. And I said, look, you're going to do two things. First, we're going to come up with a standard email. I call it the warm ABCs. Because it's an email, it's going to sound cold unless you make an effort to be warm. Therefore, make it warm. Dear Fred, wanted to know, we really love working with you. I got a very important question for you. And then A is ask for exactly what you actually need. Is it a decision? Is it an authorization? Is it, what? What am I asking for here? Put it up front. You may have to write the email until you're clear on what it is you're asking for. Okay, go back and insert at the top of the email. What am I asking you for? It's literally, this email requests your choice of one of these 3 logos. That's the thing I actually need. That's the A in ABC. B is by when. I need this decision no later. Then if you say tomorrow, comma, and then, Thursday, the 20th of July. Because if you say tomorrow and I don't read it until tomorrow, Am I thinking tomorrow from when I read it? Tomorrow.
That's that vague
Now
language.
and now I got to go look up. Like, when did he send it? Don't make people think, especially clients. Don't make people think. If you're the one writing the email, you do the extra work so they don't have to. And so if I ever say tomorrow, I always try to say tomorrow, parenthesis, THU for Thursday, 19-JUL or 20-JUL for the 20th of July. I never use two numbers. I don't do 3/2 or 2/3 because that's either February 3rd or March 2nd, depending on if you're European, Central American.
That's right. Yep.
It's like, no ambiguity. Ambiguity is evil.
Yep.
It's just no. And so I standardize, I actually train anybody who works with me. You always put a 2-digit number for the day, hyphen, and a 3-letter abbreviation for the month. There's never any ambiguity with that. And that's how, and if there's a time component, I specify the time zone. That's a fully qualified date. And so I need this decision from you no later than, noon tomorrow, Thursday, the 20th of July, and noon would be Pacific time. That's the B, by when. Okay, what's the C? The C is the context and the consequence. What if you don't reply?
Very important.
Okay, because they might not. Or why is this decision all that important? They're not going to remember. When I first broached this, they were like, but it's obvious why it's important. I said, no, it's obvious to you because you're working full time on the project. The client's doing 9 other things, none of them this, and they're probably looking at this email, at the gate at LaGuardia between flights. Don't make them try to search out the context to remember why this is important. Just put it in there as a sentence. This decision will unlock the next phase of the project, and any delay will cause a delay to the entire project. Or whatever's true. And there's a little S after ABCs. The S stands for silence. What if they go dark? If I do not hear from you, I will put the project on hold until I do.
Yep.
Or if I do not hear from you, I will contact your spouse and ask him or her. If I do not hear from you, I will something. And when I taught people that, they would say, "This sounds threatening." I'm like, look, if they are silent, something will happen. All you're doing is demystifying what will happen. Because things will happen whether you say it or not.
Yeah.
It's kinder to be clearer and tell them, if I don't hear from you, and then I'd stop and say, what are you going to do if you don't hear from them? I'm just going to put the project on hold. Okay, tell them that.
Yes.
And again, I would get pushback. And I finally said, okay, you need to change your onboarding, the initiation negotiation phase. You need to say, look, before we start working together, you need to know, during Perform, we use a template to communicate with our clients. Here's an example. It's going to look and sound like this. We don't say it to be mean. We're not trying to threaten you. This is how we clearly communicate status and needs for updates with clients. Are you going to be okay with this? And most people say, oh my God, this is great. You actually thought this out. Yeah, we thought this out. We're professionals. And if anybody says, you can't talk to me like that, okay, well, how would you like me to talk to you when I need a decision in its critical path?
Yeah.
Give me the wording you'd like, and I'll put a note in your file, and that's how I'll talk to you, Sahib.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever you like, but don't leave this stuff to chance. Okay.
Right.
Top performers do not leave performance to chance. And don't think that you can just do the work and survive or thrive. You have to do the work and manage expectations around the work both. That is the definition of accountability, is both of those things together.
Yeah.
Not just one and not just the other.
Do you know how much this makes my heart sing to have a guest on my show who pretty much is just confirming everything that I preach about, with the clarity and the specificity, the directness, and direct communication does not equate to being mean, right? It does not equate
and if
to,
it feels mean to you,
yeah,
reverse. Okay, first off, soften your tone, and second,
right.
reverse positions.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Put yourself in the other person's shoes, or even front load it and say, hey, we love our clients, and we believe, as Brene Brown says, that clear is kind.
That's right.
There
Yes.
is a greater than zero possibility that we will hit a snag. If and when we hit a snag, we will communicate to you like this. Here's a sample. Here's a template. Here's an example of how we do this.
That's right.
It will look like this. We will need you to turn around. If you can't reply, you need to tell us who is your backup person so we can get fast answers. If no one answers within 24 hours, it says here in the contract, we can put your project on hold. We don't want to do that. But we can't just pay people to sit idly because that would bankrupt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, and here's our policy on overcharges and overages and whatever. And if anything was about to occur that might cause an upcharge or a penalty, we will tell you in an email like this, and it'll sound like this. And here's an example. And again, these are not attempts to make you feel bad. Yes, this is our way of being super transparent on what to expect. We're professionals, you're a professional, and professionals talk about money and timelines and commitments.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that what I am doing for you, what I am delivering to you is 100% what you're expecting, 100% what you want.
Yep.
I want you to be happy. I want you to be satisfied with this.
Bingo.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so critical to be able to understand that. And you're right. Email, it can be very cold, but I tell you what a great opportunity. Email gives us a great opportunity to really think about, very carefully, how do I craft this message in a way that it can be clear and also show some compassion at the same time. So
absolutely. And if you're not sure how to do it, take the time up front to draft 3 or 4 versions as templates, or consult some friends. Or notice when you get an email that you think, oh, I love this email. This is so nice. Oh, file it away. Put it in a swipe file. Hang on to that stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, this has been such a fantastic episode. I know that the listeners are going to walk away with so much that they can use coming up with. And really, more than leadership, this is something just every day if you want to be able to perform effectively in the workplace. And I can even see how we could apply a lot of this to our personal relationships.
Anywhere you're managing expectations, which is, most of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Do you manage expectations with your spouse, with your kids, with your parents, with your neighbors? Yeah, you do.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
One last thought I'll leave you with is,
please.
There's one thing, because if you're looking to be promoted, managing your people's expectations of you and how you follow through on commitments is a huge way to differentiate yourself. Yeah. And there is one thing that no one minds it if you steal it, and that is responsibility. Run towards problems. Run towards problems and do it equipped with tools like this to be highly, highly accountable and highly clear and kind.
Yes.
And when you show up as an empathic problem solver and you communicate with exquisite clarity and show exquisite attention to detail, and you manage your expectations just as avidly as you manage the rest of the work, you will be a standout person, and people will want to give you more work and want to give you more responsibility. Heck, I would.
Yeah. All of us want that, right? It just makes it so much better.
That's who we want to delegate to, is the people who take ownership and make stuff happen.
That's right.
And don't blindside us.
Yeah. That is wonderful. So how do we get in touch with you?
Please go to bestboss.biz. If you have me on again another time, I'll explain the significance of Best Boss. It's the touchstone and the heart of what I call the only universal truth of leadership.
Yes, I would love to have you on the show again if you're willing to come back on the show. There's just so much we could talk about. Absolutely. But that'll be next time. We'll dive into that. Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. This has been so incredibly informative, and I know that we've learned a lot here. So thanks again for taking the time to sharing this with us.
Very much my pleasure, Jen. Thank you for having me on.
All right, everybody, y'all take care. Have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review.